Welcome back to another Sorare video. Today I've got a very, very special guest with me. I've got Ross, aka FPL Raptor, and we're going to be chatting about his Sorare strategy for this upcoming season. Ross, thank you for coming on the channel, mate.
No, thank you, mate. I've been watching a lot of your videos, actually, pretty much all of them over the last couple of months. So it's good to chat and good to get some of your expert opinion because I'm a bit of a novice when it comes to Sorare.
It's going to be nice to kind of chat through, from your perspective, being predominantly a massive FPL player and coming over to Sorare. What have you found different, similar?
I feel like there's a lot of crossovers, especially if you're going to play like the Premier League campaign. But I feel like this rewards kind of like scouting a little bit more and finding gems. Whereas with FPL, everyone can own pretty much every player at every point. With this, I feel like not everyone obviously has the same player because there's a limited amount of them. And I feel like it rewards you for having advanced knowledge of certain leagues and certain positions and stuff. I like that element. And I also like that, again, you have more choices every week. If you've got a gallery of 40 cards, you're only going to pick 5, 10, 15 of them. That's really cool. Whereas in FPL, you have the same 11 every week unless you're playing a wild card. So I like the element of being able to choose and select and think about different combinations of players. So it's kind of almost more advanced than FPL, I would say. And that's nice for me because sometimes obviously FPL, especially in weeks that I'm rolling transfers, can be a bit too simple.
Yeah, there's just so many more possibilities, and I think it does scratch the football manager itch a lot more, doesn't it? Like the scouting element that can't be scratched on FPL, whereas on Sorare, of course, there's need for a budget and all that jazz. You can sort of play out and be a legit manager, digitally.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree fully with that.
Now really feels like broken through, but I definitely think there's way more interest than there was, which can only kind of be a good thing. Do you foresee that continuing? Do you think it's something that is a transferable want to play a game like this? Or do you think the fact that you don't need to, but if you want a nice decent enough gallery, you are going to have a budget to spend? Do you think that stops it from becoming incredibly mainstream?
I think the thing is, for obviously Sorare to grow, people need to talk about it and promote it. And in the FPL Fantasy Premier League community, there's a bit of a stigma around paying things. It's like, it's a free game. Why are you bringing in paid ads and this and that? And so the idea of paying for cards in the FPL community will be something that's really frowned upon. But there's so much crossover. I think the big thing that changed is the addition of rivals. From my understanding, the change in how rivals is set up, it made it so easy during the Euros. You start to get more and more interested in Sorare. Then you think, oh, I'll buy one card just so I can enter the semi-pro lineup, and it sort of goes from there. So I think as long as Rivals continues to be popular and they continue to develop it over at Sorare, I can only see it yet growing.
I'm just so impressed with how they've really revamped Rivals over the last couple of months and however long it's been out, because it's really scratching that free-to-play itch way more than what we had before with common cards and stuff. The Rivals thing is so much more interactive, and fair play to Sorare for kind of doing that, because as an onboarding tool, it's insane, because you can get your friends involved. And I don't know, I don't have any inside info or anything, but I'm sure after this Euros competition that obviously went down really well, I'm sure I'd like to think they'll do some sort of longer term Premier League thing, co-op situation. I'm sure there's something in the works there, because if not, it is going to be tough to reel in, the wider audience, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's so much easier to say to my YouTube viewers, just come and have a go for free. There's this way you can enter this 5-a-side lineup. You don't have to buy any cards. And if you enjoy it, then you can go and do that. Whereas, it's just such a hard sell for Sorare to just say, come and spend loads of money on cards for a game that you've not played before. It's very difficult. So I think they understand that. And I can only imagine that they will be pouring a lot of their resources into Rivals. And I mean, that's how I started during the Euros, was via Rivals. I was literally their perfect test subject. I joined, played Rivals for a bit, liked Rivals. I bought one card to play semi-pro, enjoyed that, and now I'm building up my gallery. So, it's literally how they're planning it out, which is getting play, and then obviously, hopefully, people will play more and more and start to build out their gallery.
I guess that kind of segues nicely into what you've been getting up to over these last couple of weeks. Getting busy for the Premier League Classic competition.
Yeah, it was. I was watching your videos actually, and I actually built my own version of this. It wasn't anywhere near as neat, but I liked this to visualize it. And I guess for me, it was, I want to get involved this year, and I want to enter the pro, and I had a little bit of budget to use, but I didn't want to go completely out of my depth. I didn't want to start trying to build Bundesliga lineups when, in all honesty, I don't watch the Bundesliga. So I thought, where's the best place to start? Well, it's probably the Premier League. So the first thing I did was just buy 5 to 10 cards, build a couple of teams of Premier League cards, probably massively overpaid for them, and started to get a bit of a better idea about how the market works and obviously like collection bonus and things like that. So I just started to fill out my Premier League. And in the meantime, I caught a couple of your videos. I think Quinny uploaded a video as well, and it was about under 23s. And I like the idea of it being only classic, obviously being global as well. And I just thought longer term, having under 23 cards is quite a fun thing to do. So I obviously started to build out the under 23s as well. And this is something where I don't know much. And in all honesty, Harry, I'd say 50% of these cards are from your videos and your recommendations. So I was just starting to buy cards and build out. But then I'd say maybe 4 or 5 of these I've not asked a single person about, and I've just bought them. And they could be awful, but I liked that. I was like, you know, I'm actually doing my own research now. I'm using Sorare data, and I'm looking at AA scores. And I'm really getting involved with it and trying to find out which players could do well and trying to do research as to whether they're going to get a transfer. So as much as I love the Premier League, I'm almost kind of too knowledgeable about the Premier League to where it doesn't feel rewarding, because I know every player. I know where they play. I know if they're nailed. I could say every Premier League lineup because that's my job. But the under 23s has been brilliant because I have no idea about any other leagues. I'm buying players that I've never heard of. So yeah, I've really enjoyed that, and probably a bit of the mess, which we'll probably move on to in terms of dates and leagues and things like that. But I'm really happy with my gallery, and it's at a point now where I think I'm happy with where it is going to the start of the season. And if I notice some gaps as I start playing the pro tournament, then I'll plug those gaps.
Yeah, I think you did the best thing possible in, like, I mean, it's an obvious statement. You buy what you know when you come into this game. If you are going to buy, if you're not going to buy, you play rivals. But if you do come into it, then you've got to, whatever league you're knowledgeable in or most knowledgeable in, I think that's where, your first chunk has to go, because otherwise, like you said, you are going to make some costly mistakes. You might make them anyway, because like you said, you might not know how the market works, and buying in season and classic, like the game has become, it's always been quite intricate, I think, but more so than ever, like it's not that simple. Like, it's not a simple game. You can make it simple. You've made the right decision in, like, sort of sticking with what you know, but at the same time, you have kind of like ventured out with the under 23 stuff, which, like you said, I'm probably at fault for. But I know I'll take the pressure. I think you've bought really well. Yeah, no, you've got a really nice bit of depth, and like you said, it's global, which is obviously a bit different to the Premier League. You're only locked into having to play Prem cards. But I guess the fun thing with your Prem stuff is you could play them in Champion if you really wanted to scratch the itch of potentially winning a card from La Liga or a card from the Bundesliga.
Yeah, absolutely. And that was the idea behind it, was that some of these under 23 cards can carry across as well. But it's just such a vast number of players that you have available to you that I just thought it just made sense to have a go. And I feel like I'm more likely to get a fluky win despite not having the best gallery in under 23s, because in kind of Bundesliga Prem, the Rodris, the Bellinghams, it's going to be difficult to kind of compete with those players. But I feel like in under 23s, you could manage to get yourself a fluky win at some point.
100%. I bang on about it in my videos a lot, like the global aspect of it. But like all your players here, bar obviously Mainu and Garnacho, which will probably be played in Prem more often than not, I'm going to imagine. You've bought Challenger and Contender cards, which I think is the play with under 23, because you can obviously, or should be able to win, champion cards within under 23 and not have to pay the crazy amounts that the Bellinghams and Vinnies and Yamals are going for,
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, I'm excited about some of these players. It might end up that they don't pan out the way I think, but having done my research and stuff, and like I say, it's even, again, back off the back of your videos, like breaking it down by AA and decisives and trying to get a good balance of not just players that are scoring for fun, because when they don't score, they're going to get me 10 points. Trying to get some of the more consistent scorers in there as well. So when I build out my teams, we'll see. But it feels like there's a fairly good balance in there, at least. At the moment, at least, and this might be the wrong way to approach it, I'm not playing so rare to make money. So for me, the in-season element, it'd be great to win some money, but I'd almost prefer a card. Like, I quite like the idea of winning cards. So I'm going to stick with Classic for now, and I'll see how that goes. But over time, obviously, if I do well in the Classic tournaments, then I'll get the in-season cards, and maybe I'll go from there. But yeah, for me, this is about having kind of fun, and I think it's more fun for me getting to open a tier 2 limited than it is getting $100 or whatever. So I
think that rings true, though. This, like, even if you've been playing this game for a while and you are looking to kind of make from this game, like, it's still way more fun to win cards. You ask any user and they'll tell you the same thing, despite however long they've been playing the game. Nobody should really be coming into this game thinking the first thing they need to do is make money, because it's just you're setting yourself up for disaster. Basically, it's just not going to happen overnight, like in any sort of thing that you put your money into. Like, if it was that easy, everyone would be doing it, right? That kind of rings true in most aspects in life. And yeah, it's something that you want to make the least amount of mistakes in the cheapest way possible. If you're doing that by buying things you already know, i.e., like for yourself, Premier League cards. Like you can't really go too far wrong.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm excited, man. I'm really, really excited to see kind of how these lineups get on in the first few weeks of the tournament.
Right, yeah. So I was looking, that kind of brings us on nicely to what we're going to finish the video on. So I was looking, and game week 498 is the first time all your under 23 cards are kind of playing together. And you're able to actually build, like I built 2 like dummy lineups out earlier, but you are able to build out 2 lineups, it looks like, with all the cards you have. So, I mean, you're in a nice little position. Both your goalkeepers are at home in the first game, which is never a bad thing.
Obviously, I planned that out, and I know about that.
I don't know too much about this Sibernet because I think they got promoted, if I'm not mistaken. Sturm Graz are a good team, so that game's quite even. Well, it's actually in favor of Sturm Graz right now. So I think Cavallin is probably your best bet for the first round of things.
Yeah, I would say so. And then I've obviously got the Jurisic as well to stack that as well, especially if it's a good fixture. So I'm pretty happy with that stack.
You've got some wicked midfielders, by the way, like really, really strong 4 players there.
Yeah, I was really happy. I kind of started out. I think Kenneth Taylor was the first one I bought. Obviously, isn't there because he isn't playing for that game week. But I picked up Taylor, and then I picked up a couple others, and I quickly realised that picking up good midfielders, especially with a high AA score, is probably a good idea for the pro tournaments because they just score very, very well on a consistent basis. So yeah, I think I've got 7 under 23 midfielders in total, and that's probably where most of my kind of budget went.
Yeah, I think doubling up on midfielders more so than like a forward or a defender like is probably the play because midfielders are more often than not the most punchiest of cards just because a lot of the time they might be taking penalties and free kicks and getting lots of AA, and you couple that with a goal or an assist, you're looking at high 80s, which is a lot, which is what a lot of these players are capable of. I think this Leopold guy, I've not actually watched him play, but I've heard a few rumors that he's on penalties this year, so that could be really tasty for Hanover and you.
Yeah, definitely, and it looks like a pretty good fixture for that game week, doesn't it? As well.
I think they've just been promoted as well because a lot of these teams with no badge, they basically indicate that they've just been promoted. So Karsgaard as well, Salzburg playing away, but to another newly promoted team. So you've got some really good fixtures. I'd say Leopold probably gets the nod. Yep. Now, there's a bit of controversy with one of these players you've got here, which I own as well. Balikwisha. Have you heard the Celtic rumors?
I have, and it was after I bought him. Well, nice. At least I heard the rumors after I bought him. It will be interesting to see what way that goes. But yeah, his scores were unbelievable, and he was very, very cheap when I picked him up in comparison to the scores anyway. So yeah, we'll have to see what happens there. But would that be a good thing or a bad thing?
He could be like one of the more elite under 23 forwards.
Oh,
if you have a look back, I'll kind of show you now. So back in the day, do you remember when Jota was playing for Celtic?
Oh yeah. Yeah,
so he was under 23 at the time. He's obviously 25 now. But if you look at his Celtic scores, right, and he'd be playing in a similar position to a Jota. Like, look at these scores.
Oh, wow. Okay, then fingers crossed for that. Fingers crossed for that move.
So obviously, Jota isn't Balikwisha, but from what I've seen of Balikwisha, he looks exceptional. And there's a reason why Celtic are kind of sniffing around him. You'd almost, I want him to move ideally, and I think anyone that kind of owns him should probably feel the same way. So it's a weird one because you might not be able to use him there in that like he might have moved. There could be a weird little funky situation. But you have you have 2 other forwards anyway. So I'd probably go with this Tim Lepurley fella.
Yeah, that was a suggestion from is it Sorare Germany on Twitter. I was asking for a few cheap sort of recommendations for just other forwards that could sort of fill out the gallery a little bit, and he recommended him. So we'll see.
Scores look good, so I can get behind it. For this little extra position, I mean, it's basically a toss-up between like a Tony Fruk, I would say. Karsgaard has to be in the conversation as well. So Appelkamp's really good as well, but away fixture to Darmstadt doesn't feel too optimal.
I've got a question, I guess, as a newbie to this.
Yeah.
Would you recommend like really pouring everything into one top lineup? Or so, for example, is it Kjaergaard?
Yeah.
Like, he's obviously my next best midfielder. In this position, do you just slap the best midfielder in there and really go all out for that first lineup? Or do you think kind of spread it slightly and have him as the best player, obviously, in like a second lineup?
I'd say if you were asking me this before like boxes and essence were a thing, like let's say a year ago or 6 months ago, then I would probably tell you 100% focus on putting the 5 best cards, despite like making the second lineup a bit weaker, like go all out for the first 5. And I'm still maybe thinking that anyway, but with the whole like essence thing, and I think it's the top 50 or the top 25% get boxes, and in those boxes can be, whatever, right? Some fun things. It's almost a case of if your other 4 players are like not in that good of spots. Whereas I'll be honest, your 4 here look like they're in great spots. But let's just argue they weren't. I'd be more of the opinion of like spreading it out a little bit and having like 2 7 out of 10 teams maybe, because multi-entry now, and like the fact that it's going to be like ridiculously hard to win things. So if you feel like, you know what, I'm happy with both my teams here picking up a few boxes this weekend. I'm not thinking about hitting a top 10 or a top 20, which is unrealistic for most weeks. But, unless all like the fixtures align for you, I don't think anyone should really be like thinking or like realistically thinking they're going to get there, because like I said, 40,000 users probably playing. It's going to be tough. So you might actually be better off going Karsgaard in like the secondary lineup to kind of boost up both of them, and make them both equal in a weird way. But then there's also merit going all in one. Like there is, like it all depends on how good the other 4 fixtures are for me and how much you like want to win. I know that sounds stupid, or like you happy with just like churning things over the course of the season.
Yeah. Okay. Maybe like a Tony Fruke in this lineup then, and we'll
100%. Yeah, I mean it's not much of a downgrade anyway, to be honest. Yeah. So I think you're in a good position there. So I guess it's Hadel and Anuar if you want to keep the defensive stack going there. I mean, Zetna's scoring really well as well last season. So
that was my first trade offer I ever received the other day.
Someone
offered me Zetna for Adingra, and I've got a feeling Adingra might be rotated a little bit more this season, and I've got enough forwards, at least in the Prem. So I just went, you know what, I quite like that idea. So I went for it.
No, it makes sense, mate. 19 as well. He's really young. Wow, some really good scores. So yeah, if Balikwisha moves, then obviously he is the prime forward in either lineup. Actually, I would argue, but let's just argue he's unavailable. So it might mean that Lamura, however we're going to pronounce that. I mean, Balikwisha, like we said, if he's fit, then he's obviously going to be in the lineup. And then probably Appelkamp. He's been really good in preseason as well, from what I'm hearing. And I do think your Rapid boys are playing in Europa League, or one of the either Conference League or Europa League. And they could have a bit of utility over these next couple of weeks. Keep an eye on if anything comes up in your lineup builder on Sorare or even Sorare, because there might be a bit of utility for them.
Okay, that's good to know.
Yeah, Opta are a little bit funny sometimes. Like they won't cover certain games, in the sort of first rounds of those cups. Yeah, you could get lucky and you could get a bit of utility, like a bit of midweek utility out of them. Moving over and sort of finishing with the Prem then. Your bread and butter this is. You're going to tell me what the best 5 is here.
Yeah, so I've got 3 lineups in my mind that I've built. Obviously, I might mix and match depending on the fixtures, but in terms of kind of game week 1, I actually think, despite Man United having Fulham at home, I actually think my strongest lineup might be my Spurs and Newcastle stack.
Interesting.
So I've got Vicario and Porro as that defensive stack. I also picked up a Maddison in the hope that he can stay fit as that midfield slot. And then I've got Isak and Bruno Guimaraes as my kind of 2 Newcastle attackers, and they've got Southampton at home. So I think Southampton and Leicester, 2 newly promoted teams. In all honesty, they're not kind of your traditional newly promoted teams, because they're probably much stronger than normal championship sides. But I look at that and I think that's a lineup where maybe not many people will have those exact 5, because it's obviously not a full stack. So I quite like the idea. I'd probably say that's my most promising team for game week 1, or game week, what is it in Sorare? 5-0 something?
502, yeah. We're in the 500s now.
Yeah, so I like that one. And then obviously, as you say, I do have, based on the kit, which you can't see because my camera decided to die, but I do have a full Manchester United team as well. So I've got Onana. I'll probably go for Luke Shaw, but I do have Dalot as well. It will just depend if Luke Shaw's fit and available or not. And then I picked up a Bruno Fernandes during the Euros, and he was actually pretty good for me in the semi-pro tournament. And then I've got Garnacho and Mainu to finish off the team.
Wow. Okay.
I will be looking to add more players probably. It's just a matter of who's going to get enough minutes, because I'd love to get a Højlund and a Xerxes, but they're going to rotate a bit. I'd love to pick up potentially Alessandro Martinez as well, but I've already got Luke Shaw and Dalot, so it doesn't feel that necessary apart from for the collection bonus. So I'm kind of happy with that 5. If Manchester United really start stinking up on a regular basis, it might be that I use Garnacho and Mainu in the under 23s, or I use Bruno in a different lineup. But for now, especially against Fulham at home in game week 1, I think that's a pretty good team.
Yeah, it really is. And especially for like your secondary team as well.
Exactly, yeah, absolutely. And then my other team is, I think Palace were just unbelievable last year. So I've gone pretty much for a full Palace stack, which is Henderson and Munoz. Munoz has been so good even for Colombia, so I'm excited about that. I've got Eze. I've got Mateta, who is at the Olympics, so I'm hoping by this time the Prem starts, he's back and ready. And I've actually put Declan Rice in that lineup just because I have him in the gallery, and it's just, again, to not go for a full kind of Palace stack. And I'm hoping that he stays on set pieces, because towards the back end of last season for Arsenal, he took pretty much every free kick and corner for them. And I think his AA is already unbelievable. If he can just chuck in 10 assists next season, I think he'll be really good. So yeah, those are my 3 lineups. I've got a few other players. I've actually got quite a few Fulham players, but obviously they play against my team in the first game, so I'm not going to pick them. But I've got kind of Leno, Robinson, Iwobi, Muniz. I've got a few really decent kind of Fulham players in there as well, and I think that might at points be a nice stack. I actually think after Man United, they've got Ipswich and then Leicester in the 2 games following that. Yeah. So if I can get 4 Fulham players out, I think that could end up being really good. I mean, Anthony Robertson last season was really good, and I like the role that he plays. So yeah, they've got good fixtures, and I just think that combination of Fulham players, again, I don't think there'll be many Fulham stacks because they're not the best team, but at least for those couple of games, I think they'll be very good.
100%. What are you going to do with that team? Do you think you'll put it in the like the Champ Classic for that weekend?
Yeah, either that, or potentially, depending on how much I hate my own team, I might pull my team apart and just enter a Fulham team instead.
The disrespect.
Yeah, I know.
No, I like it. I like the little Declan Rice differential there in that Palace stack, because yeah, I mean, you've got the cards. If Palace are going to go off, those are the 4 really, that they're probably going to do it. If Munoz gets like you said, he's been immense for Colombia. Yeah, he's been insane since moving, and yeah, fair play to him. But yeah, Eze, do you think Eze leaves or do you think he stays?
No, he'll stay. There's not been too many rumours now. I think he'll be off next season if Palace struggle without Elise, but I think as long as Palace continue to improve, which I think they will, I think he'll stay.
I think the first team's unbelievable though.
I'm not expecting like too much. I'm not expecting to win this, especially with my collection bonuses aren't fantastic, and I don't have massive XP on a lot of the players, so I'm not expecting to win anything, but it'd be nice to pick up a couple of cool rewards.
Yeah, no, I think you'll be in the mix for sure. Like the only one I'm not worried about, but like because you've gone full United, like you said, yeah, the collection bonus might let you down there, but the other 2 lineups, because there is a few differentials in there, and you've obviously split stacked the first lineup, like, you could easily, like, I'm not saying easy, but you could win. Like, there's no, like, nothing stopping you from winning.
You've told me I'm going to win now. I'll hold you to that.
So, yeah, you hold me to that, and the under 23, the buys now. Everything's on me.
Exactly. No, if I do well, it's on me. But if I do poorly, it's on you.
No, but I'm excited, mate. Honestly, I'm really excited for the upcoming season, just from a bit of an OG Sorare playing that, like, it's just nice seeing other communities, like, really, take to it in that sense and kind of understand it and want to get involved in it, because we are a little niche community at the end of the day, and it's always nice when we kind of break a crack or 2 into I mean, I'm not going to call it mainstream, but there's definitely we're sort of creeping.
Yeah, absolutely. I think they've made some really good changes in that respect, and hopefully it continues. And I think all it needs is a couple of extra things and some FPL managers to start, and then I think it will break mainstream, and it will be the situation where a lot more people are playing. And I think that only benefits everyone the more people that get involved.
But no, mate, honestly, I really appreciate your time. Obviously, I'll let you go, and thank you for coming on, mate. It's been an absolute pleasure.
No worries, mate. Maybe we'll have a chat again on your channel, kind of a bit into the season once I've had a few stinkers, maybe won a few prizes as well. I'll come back on and we'll maybe evaluate the gallery and have a bit of a chat then.
Yeah, no, mate, that sounds amazing. Massive good luck for this. Well, your first game week, which should be 498 for the under 23s.
Yeah, I might chat to you just before that to get some advice for the lineups. But yeah, this was really, really helpful for me.